I'm here with two very talented multi-hyphenates who are a creative team, but also work on individual projects. Cristian Duran is a New York City comedian whose unique comedic voice formed from his Brooklyn roots and Florida upbringing. His comedy has taken him across the US and he's achieved notable recognition. In 2016, Cristian released the debut episode of his animated cartoon show, Future Hall of Famers. And in 2020, his debut comedy album, King Latifah, reached the #1 spot on the iTunes comedy charts upon release. Cristian is also the director of Race the Movie, the Play, which he co-wrote with Bret Raybould, who is also here today.
I'm so pissed Cristian got to go first. This is, I am furious. I had to interrupt and go, what the hell is this?
In our pre-interview chat, you graciously allowed Cristian to go first, but I can sense the tension here. Let's quickly introduce Bret as well. Bret Raybould is a New York City comedian with an ever-expanding BCU, or Bret Cinematic Universe. In 2019, Bret retired from comedy with a debut hour comedy special. Then his alter ego, which I can tell you is really also Bret, released a jazz record entitled Bret on Bublé. After his very brief retirement, Bret unretired and returned to comedy. He has two podcasts, one of which he co-hosts with comedians Nick Whitmer and Cristian Duran, and Bret plays a lead character in Race the Movie, the Play. Guys, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me for what I believe will be an interesting and very memorable conversation.
I think so. I can't wait. Sorry if I came in hot. I have feelings.
I hope you can forgive me, and we can move on. Let's bury that. Both of you do lots of things, but I think the common denominator is comedy. So why did you pick comedy to tell stories and get messages across? And dare I say, Bret, do you want to go first?
And now when it comes to actually like answering questions, I'm like, crap, Cristian, you take this one. I like getting people out of the equilibrium of their life through hopefully spurts of joy that comedy can bring.
As a stand-up comedian, you want to make people laugh, but you also want to tell stories or convey some sort of message, right? Why is comedy like the best form for you personally to do it? It was just a talent you've always had to make people laugh, or is it something else?
You can get across hard ideas sometimes, but disguise them in something that makes us all smile. The biggest laughs come from something that is actually conveying a message. There's a really interesting thought or something you're pushing up against. Comedy can be the best way to deliver that, because you know, it's like sugar helps medicine go down. And in no way do I feel like the show Cristian and I have co-written and have so many great comedians and actors in is like, oh, this is medicine for, you know, this is the antidote to society's ills. I feel like it communicates some honest things, and comedy is the best form for delivering honesty because it disarms people.
Cristian, do you agree? And also same question for you, like, why did you pick comedy to tell your stories and get any message you want to convey across?
Cop that, Cristian.
Similar to what Bret said, I think it's just something I naturally gravitated to, just because I always like comedy and I always like making people laugh. I think I personally I've always felt like a little weird or different, and the thing about laughter and comedy is that if you're laughing with somebody together, you can laugh, you can reach somebody that isn't necessarily like you. If somebody's laughing with you, they can't hate you if they're laughing with you, right? So, and it also reinforces things like we're all together and we all recognize certain truths and things that are common to all of us, and when we laugh, that's the recognition of that. So that's what I really gravitate towards. So it makes me feel a little less alone and a little more normal in that if I, go on stage with something like a weird thought or something and people laugh and relate to it, I go, oh yeah, I guess I'm not that weird. So, or we're all weirder than I thought. So that feels good. Yeah, and it's just fun. It's just a fun thing to make people happy. It's just, and yeah, it is a great way to, like, not Trojan horse like a message, but it's just a great delivery system for ideas, and it makes people more susceptible to a different way of thinking. So yeah.
Yeah, in comedy, like what's so great about pretty much every show is it's just a random room of people. So it's like everyone, you don't know who's going to be in the room as far as like where they're from, their background, their identity, anything like that. But the comic's job in whatever that room is, be it a bar show for, 14 people, or let's say a bigger theater show for a few hundred or even bigger than that, no matter what they are, the job is to unite them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a special thing about comedy is it can it can unite people regardless of age and any other aspect of identity.
That is a great philosophy, and I love that you guys see it that way, and that it goes beyond just making people laugh, but seeing laughter and comedy as a connecting factor. I don't want to say that it's the glue that holds everything together, but I do think it helps bridge cultural and political differences, or at least have people listen to each other. Bret, I think you also do performances for, you have little videos up on social media. Where you do performances for, I think, audiences that have political views that are different from yours, and you explicitly state that. Do you feel comfortable telling me a little bit about that? Or
Yeah. And by the way, how wonderfully diplomatically articulated that was by you. To put it in blunt terms, I mean, I work anywhere as a comic, including conservative rooms. And there was kind of an era in comedy where it was like the cool idea to quarantine away from you, to almost like cast off anyone with political differences. And I just completely disagree with that mentality. And because again, comedy is about bridging the gap. And the truth is if you're funny about who you are and honest about it, a room doesn't care that you don't have their one-to-one political beliefs on single payer healthcare or whatever it is. Like they want honesty. And so when you see a comic either pander or be rude about how they're different in an unfunny way, it's frustrating. And I love performing for a room that maybe isn't like me in some ways. I see it as not even a challenge, but just like a joy to get to do. That's why stand-up is great. That's why it's fun to do every room. I think the best comedians are every room comics, where the funniest stuff is just universally true. And that's why comics, I think, should always try and write about the things we all experience, because we all go through that. And no matter who someone was in a voting booth, they're going to have had an argument with their mom.
Or universal truths. And if you go beyond the political differences, I think that a lot of people are willing to listen, whereas outside of comedy, they might not be willing to listen. I also remember one of Cristian's clips asked the room who is anti-racist, I think. And he was utterly confused. How did you come up with that question, and what was the goal besides making people laugh? Obviously, so it was a funny question, but yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was I just think it's a weird thing to have to declare. You're it just feels like it should go without saying, right? It would make more sense that you would have to declare that you're racist in order to, like, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just saw it in a lot of people's Twitter bios and stuff like that. And I just thought it's like, you see, whenever something bad happens, people change their Facebook picture, and it's that social media activism it's sort of like paying lip service to any doing anything real about anything. And it's just one of those things. It's a little bit about like the person trying to virtue signal. Well, I asked the audience, I go, clap if you're anti-racist, and about 9 out of 10 audience members don't know how to react to that, because it's weird. I mean, I said it. It's like, it feels like a trap, doesn't it? And they say, yes, it feels like a trap, because in that moment, there's something true that happens in the room that everybody goes, I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. That sounds like the right thing to say, but I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that. I'm not going to say anything. And then
Right.
I think people feel that way. So, and then I kind of turned it where I said, I don't trust people who tell me they're anti-racist. I think it's weird. That'd be like me going up to a bunch of fourth graders and being like, guys, just to let you know, I'm an anti-pedophile. Like that, nothing makes you sound like more of one than having to say you're not. It's like, and then I kind of finish it off by saying, just be it, don't say it. So I think that's what I'm trying to convey, but it's just the ridiculousness of having to declare, like, go, I am an anti-racist. He's like, okay, like, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I can definitely see, I can see the similarities in your work, even though it's very different in terms of content, but I do understand why you guys are friends and collaborators. So before we dive into your most recent project, can you tell me how you guys met and what was it that made you want to work together? I can see the smiles. Why did you think a collaboration would be fruitful between the two of you?
Well, we met on Tinder.
I had my age range set to 50 to 70. Come on. He's bringing in the old jokes. But we met at just terrible open mics in New York. And one thing that's awesome about a terrible open mic in New York, it's just for other comics. And in the midst of everyone having a bad set, because it's an open mic and comedians are there to work on their own stuff, so it's not really a good barometer of the jokes if they're funny. But when you actually watch, you yourself can be like, oh, that guy has a funny like tick to his brain. And so I would say that was a component of me and Cristian becoming friends was, Cristian would be I could recognize this guy was funny despite it being a bad open mic. And even though it was a bad open mic, I still crushed, and I just want that in the article and on the record.
Yeah, I did.
I was the only person who had like a great set, and everyone was like, dude, you're like a superstar. And people were like, you're like so strong. Like, I bet you can do a lot of push-ups. Like, people said that. And don't fact check.
We were talking one night, and I was like, we said something about, do you think there could be a comedy about slavery, or is it too hard of a subject? And then someone said, not another slave movie. And that title like stuck with me for a week, because we all laughed in the moment, but I was like brushing my teeth going like, not another slave movie, that's funny. And then like the next week I came back, just goes, let's do it. And if it was up to me, I would be like, yeah, all right, whatever. But like Bret's tenacity like really made that happen. Like we got together and like pitched around ideas, and I found my old notebook for it. And like a lot of the ideas that we pitched that night were like the same ones that like a lot of them just made it into the show and into the screenplay. But I always say that, like, and just going back to the overall question, is that like I think I'm 80% cynical and 20% optimistic, and Bret is 80% optimistic and 20% cynical. And I think that Venn diagram is where this play and movie lives, and I think that Venn diagram is very it's a good combination.
It's a perfect.
It's true. I often joke that I'm the engine and Cristian is the brains. Like, I'll do a lot of the driving, but Cristian will be like, "Whoa, let's steer this direction, Chief." And I think that's a good combo. Cristian has more vision, but I have more work ethic. Let's just say it.
Well, it's very interesting to hear how the idea was born, and that the initial ideas, or most of the initial ideas, found their way into the final, I don't want to say project, but I do wonder, you guys are comedians, and then you decided to write a screenplay, which seems like quite the step, venturing from stand-up comedy into screenwriting. You need to master a new set of skills.
It had been my like goal to finish a screenplay for about 31 years of my life. And And quite literally every year, I think my resolution every year was like, all right, screenplay. Took basically the world being put on pause for the pandemic, and all of comedy was pretty much not happening. To be like, all right, if I can't finish a screenplay when there's nothing going on, I don't have work, like, I was living with friends and or family members at the time. I don't even have rent. If I can't finish one now, then it's all a lie, and I shouldn't even hold on to that, faint idea of like, oh, I want to write a screenplay. So that was a huge component of it for me, was the world shutting down and having to confront the reality of like, dude, you got to do this, man. You can't just be like, life's so busy. Get 18 pages in and be like, man, that's when the writing gets hard. At page about 20 to 25 is when you have to be a real writer, and you can't just like have the fun of, this idea is great. You have to like confront how hard it is to make like a full thing.
So Cristian, how did you, because you have a background in film.
I went to University of Central Florida for film, but I didn't get accepted into the film program. So I got, so you could take like a thing called cinema studies. So basically there was like, you can stand over here and watch everybody. Watch everybody learn how to make movies.
You're like, can I hold the boom mic? And they're like, put that boom mic down.
But no, it was more like cinema studies. It was more like you watch films and dissect them and then talk about them, write essays and stuff. But part of it was like taking a production class. And you have to take a production class which teaches you the actual logistics of making a movie. And I remember I got a big book of like, this is what it costs to make a movie. This is all the work that needs to be done to like make a budget. And I just remember looking at this big thing. I was like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get anybody to ever convince anybody to ever give me money to make a movie. So I started doing stand-up and writing a lot. But yeah, it was similar to Bret. Like I had all these ideas and have like ideas for scripts that like some 20 years like they're still on my board and like working on still, but like I never like finished a script or had anything. And like I said, if it wasn't for Bret, it'd probably be sitting in a drawer right now. But yeah, so it's really like really actually did it. I mean, we sat down and pitched a bunch of ideas, and I probably came at it from more of like the film parody thing of like picking out certain things that I've noticed in movies, in those movies. Like I mentioned one of our talkbacks that the from 12 Years a Slave, the Michael Fassbender character, who's just like the frothing at the mouth racist, who's just so full of hate he like can't even talk. And I think we came up with Max hate from there. And then on the flip side, there's like the Benedict Cumberbatch, who's like the quote unquote nice racist, nice slave owner, who's just kind of, I mean, I don't want to whip you, but I gotta. How would it look?
One of the characters in your movie is a guy who is so racist he can't talk. So is this how that idea was born?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. We sat around and like just talked about what it would be, and then obviously it became different from those conversations. But yeah, pretty much.
I hadn't always loved the output of comedy movies in the last like 10 or so years. I kind of think there's been a bit of a dip in some of the quality. Not saying there's not some good stuff, but I think yeah, generally speaking, it isn't as good. And it was kind of centered around, well, if you're a comedian and you're sitting around going, there's no funny movies, then what the heck are you doing? Like we all have access to pens. So the idea was like, I have every tool. If I'm not happy with the state of comedy movies, why am I just going, oh man, no one can write anything good these days? It's like, well, then try yourself, rather than just being like, I should tweet about how no one's doing a good thing.
That's what the majority are doing, though, complaining on social media, not doing anything. So you guys did pick up those pens or digital pens and you wrote Race the movie. It went on to place in one of Script Pipeline's contests. So I would also say take that people who didn't allow Cristian into the, what was it, film production?
UCF Film School. I plan on winning some kind of award at some point, and instead of giving a speech, a thank you speech, I'll just read my rejection letter.
that is genius.
Everyone in showbiz or comedy or entertainment, and you too, Annalisa, we all got an ARIA kill list. Do you know what I mean?
I don't have a kill list, but I know what you mean.
Not literally. We all can agree no one's going to get killed, but we all got that list in our heads.
Metaphorical Kill Bill list. Yeah.
Yes, the Kill Bill list of like, man, you kind of were mean to me, or you kind of said something a little snide. You rejected me from film school.
But on the other hand, you guys wouldn't have been here today if you would have been allowed. Like, I mean, in a way, you should be thankful, because who knows, you might have like gotten into that program and like haven't created anything, but just been theorizing all day long. So who knows?
100%. Rejection is great if you keep going. You need to still believe in it and do what it takes to make it happen. And I say that to be like, first off, quick shout out to Matt, Misatech, and Pipeline, because their first yes made us go like, okay, we actually do have something here. But then make no mistake, there were many rejections after that, because you get that first great big yes and you're like, of course it's happening. and then it's like here, and then rejection. And I'm so glad that everyone rejected the movie version of our screenplay, because it's the entire thing that made Cristian and I go, F it, we'll do it live. Let's turn it into a play. And because you can't deny the live power, the power of live comedy in a room full of people laughing, that gets it. So yeah, and if we didn't get rejections on production companies wanting to make the movie version, I wouldn't be in the script, because they weren't going to be like, that guy with 3,000 Instagram followers, half of which are bots, you are going to be the lead. You are the lead of this production. And so it allowed me to work on my own abilities as an actor, and most importantly, meet collaborators who just want to make the stuff, because that's the most important. Yes, is, you know, the one from the creative collaborators, chief among them, Dean Edwards, the lead of our show. He's you know, I think one of the modern comedy greats. Him entering the production is what took it from, okay, let's see if we can make this happen, to like a very legitimate thing. And I would say that about everyone in our cast. But Dean being the lead, I would say, is certainly done so much to lift every aspect of the production. Most importantly, the just the comedy, just the funny of it.
Let's talk a little bit about the difficulty of getting this project made, because there was the initial success. You won Script Pipeline. Then it was very hard to find something, or actually you didn't find somebody who had the guts to make the movie. You've created a slapstick comedy about a topic that very few people associate with jokes, a topic that makes many people uncomfortable, even when you try to talk about it in a serious setting, but that really needs to be addressed: racism. And, you know, having attended the play, I think what is so good about it is that you use comedy as a catalyst for debate. It's really, really very unique, and of course very funny. Do you think that might have been one of the reasons why it was so hard to get the movie made? Like, do you think theater offers more room for taking those creative risks, especially when it comes to a complex topic like racism?
I mean, yeah, I 100% think that's why it was not received in that way. But I mean, yeah, the biggest note we got when we would send the script off for movie wise was, it's funny, but this is a touchy subject right now, which Bret and I always say, you know, right now, as opposed to like 2 weeks from now, like, okay. But I mean, and even in the theater world, I mean, I don't know, because we're not traditional theater people. Like, we just put this up ourselves. Like, we've really did everything in terms of like finding theaters and producing it. So So it's a very DIY thing. So I can't really speak on how the theater world sort of accepts it, other than to say that like the audience that we've cultivated seems to really enjoy it and is very inspired by it and is very excited about it and enthusiastic, and they tell people and they bring friends. It's touchy, but I think one of the big reasons was people were telling us no, people aren't going to like that, and we wanted to say I think people will, and I think people can handle this, and I think we're proving ourselves right and how it's been received theatrically.
Any fear of an audience is based off of fear of being judged. I think that was the biggest thing, is I think in a lot of comedy in recent years, there's like a fear of being judged as a not as moral person because you're doing comedy around a tense, justifiably tense subject. And so I think that fear of how others is going to judge you is perhaps what contributed to some folks not wanting to move forward with it, rather than how they themselves could recognize that this is funny. And that's why we did it as a play. Was we believe an audience will validate this production or this piece of comedy, and so let's just do it in front of them. And I can say certifiably that every audience we performed in front of, all 23 of them, has validated that this show is great.
Cobbled together this cast and crew who seem very committed to telling this story together in the best possible way. And it feels like you guys are all on the same page, and the play comes across as like a joint effort to get an important message across and make people laugh in the process. So how did you cobble together this group of creatives, and has it really been such a collaborative journey?
Initially, stand-ups were the main cast members. I mean, we just pulled from people who we like and thought are funny and could work. And Bret's manager sort of suggested, "Hey, what about Dean?" And then we thought, "Oh yeah, that'd be really interesting if he wanted to do it." I mean, like we didn't even know. And then he and Bret talked, and he was interested in doing it. And I was like, that's great. When we started like rehearsing with everybody, we weren't standing up rehearsing. We were sitting in a circle reading the script. And as we went through it, people always hire comedians because they will give you free rewrites. Comedians just pitch their own jokes, and things just got better and funnier and leaner. And we had discussions about things we hadn't even thought of. But yeah, there were several times where someone would pitch a joke, and then the thing I would always say is, "All right, cross that out. That's the new line." Whatever they just said, that's the new line. And it's been like that since, going on over a year, almost like 2 years now. There's always opportunities for new jokes and new ideas, and we're open to that. And if something's great, then we'll use it. And if something doesn't work, then it's okay. And I don't think there's hard feelings with anybody. So I think everybody gets it.
Which I think has been the great thing about it being a live show, is just collaborating with people. I've been told people in a lot of theater people, usually the script is the Bible, and it's maybe like, hey, do the lines how they are written. That is law and canon. And Cristian and I, because of our complete and utter bankruptcy of experience in theater, just were like, and as comics, we're like, whatever's funniest kind of wins. It's not a competition on who can say the funnier thing. I don't care if I wrote it. I don't care if someone else in our play said the line. The funniest thing, we all want that because we're all winning. So, and that does start from, the director of the show, in this case, Cristian, always being open to stuff. And it makes it better because then people are involved in their being creative about something too. And then people always ask me, did you write all those jokes? And I make sure to never give other actors credit. I always say every funny line in the show was me, just all 100% of them.
We have entered the Bret cinematic universe, the BCU.
No, I've written so many jokes that got punched up by so many people at our show.
Matt Misitich also interviewed Matt for this series, and he also said, like, the first thing that struck me when I talked to Cristian and Bret was that they are very humble and very grounded people, so no egos, and that is how the best creative work is made, and especially with comedy, I think. The project has turned the both of you into playwrights, which I know is something you still have to get used to, but technically you are. Cristian, you've directed the play. Bret, you have played one of the lead characters.
Award-winning actor and award-winning theater actor now.
Exactly. And Cristian, you also have a little cameo, right? It's a very, very funny scene.
And so there's a scene where, yeah, we show Cristian and I as writers. And one thing I've done to mess with Cristian, Cristian, you are a good actor, dude. And Cristian's always like, you know, we have people on our show, not me, who's Cristian's getting advice from on how to act, like choices to make and stuff like that. And one person in particular, Amanda Van Nostrand, she has a ton of acting experience. She's hilarious. She's an acting teacher. And so Cristian was giving Cristian some notes and choices Cristian can make. And I don't think I did it during a show, but I did during some rehearsals. I would do all of his choices too. So like Cristian's character would get up and walk behind the chair. And so I was like, I'm going to do the same thing. And I could see Cristian being like, well, what? Like, you can't just do the thing I'm doing.
Let's turn this into a brief therapy session. Cristian, how did that make you feel?
Humiliated, degraded, and
See, Bret, what your cinematic universe is doing to other people, like, this is it.
Hey, but I got to go on the record, and I got to say, if we're turning this into a therapy session, Cristian and I's relationship, are we friends? I guess. But in terms of him as a director and me as one of the actors in the production, the way Cristian gets a good performance out of you is he makes you feel like, is this good? And so, not actually, but Cristian sometimes I can feel myself like wanting that Cristian validation. I just want to be proud. Like, are you just every scene? I'm like, was that good? Are you proud of me?
In all honesty, though, it's like I never. It just never occurred when he said that to me. I was laughing because I was like, no, it just never occurred to me that it was bad. Like, I never thought it was bad. I just
He never compliments me.
I go because I guess
now it's getting serious.
I take it for granted that it's like, yeah, the guy wrote the script, like he knows he knows the character, right? So I go, yeah, that choice is correct. Let's move on. Like but Bret, I will say it on record, you're a tremendous actor.
Let's end it there. That's all I need.
I always go with Bret, like he'll do a scene and I go, okay, that was good. I'm like, what else needs to be said? That was great.
Just
like,
good. Jesus Christ. It comes from my mom, where a compliment isn't a compliment unless it's the highest order of thing you can say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're like, you're the best mom. She's like, yeah, but what about like the best of all time? You're like, all right.
Well, this is very interesting, and I'm not gonna analyze you, but I will say this. Cristian, I think Bret is secretly seeking your confirmation, which is why he imitated you while you were rehearsing. And he is bugging you about your age, which really for people watching is only like, what, 4 or 5 years? But in Bret's head, Cristian is a wiser, older man.
Yes.
I think we've just found the psychological reason for that. It's that Bret, so maybe Cristian, if you compliment Bret a little more, I'm going to improve your dynamic here. He will not bug you about your age.
Absolutely not. I'll take the jabs. The worst thing you could say to a person is "good job."
You both took on new roles for this project: directing, writing, acting in a play. So I can imagine that has come with new challenges. And I'm kind of curious to learn how you've navigated and tackled those. And maybe, Cristian, you can kick off by telling the story of the prop table, which you also shared back in May when I attended the play.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing was when we did we did a 3-show run for the New York Theater Festival. It was a very DIY thing. We don't have theater experience. Only a couple people in the cast did. And so we for that run, we just had a box full of props that people would
No. Not a box full of props.
Boxes.
We had about 9 cardboard boxes with in black Sharpie on the side of it. Scene 1-2, scene 3 to 4B, scene 4A to 7. We have 9 prop boxes of various sizes, not even uniform. One was a humongous box, one, just a shoe box for one.
Yeah. So for our next run, we added two actors who had a lot more theater experience, and Alex Murray is one of them, and he was like, so where's your, like, what are you gonna do for the prop table? And we were both like, what's a prop table? And so they set it up for us, and it was the greatest thing to happen to the play.
In rehearsal, and I look backstage, and there's this table with all the props on it in a neat, organized fashion. And I had just spent a long time organizing these boxes. Part of my brain was annoyed. I literally, my first impression was like, I spent so much time. And I was like, you guys, like, why are they on a table where we can all see them in an order that makes sense? Like, so it took me about 10 minutes to be like, oh wait, that's a way superior method of organizing props. And the boxes were thrown out. So
no egos, even with the boxes. That is worth a compliment, because I can imagine how annoyed you were. And were there any other like challenges that you've encountered, both in terms of organizing and getting that core message across, making people laugh in a different way than you were used to, from a different perspective? Did you balance all those things?
I think we're fortunate in that everyone who's a part of this project has had such a great time that they help make it happen too. And, you know, to be clear, it's not like Cristian and I are the only two in the rowboat rowing. I really do feel like everyone else has lifted the production in every way. But here's an example. Someone in our play, Justin Dinkins is his name. He is the best energy person I've like ever been around. In our show, he has smaller parts. It's not to say he's not awesome. It's just in this show, he has smaller parts. I found out Justin went to the park on his own and was handing out postcards to our show, inviting people on his own time. No one asked him to do that. And that's like, to me, that's like a great example, because he just likes the project and has had a good time and believes in it, that he's spending his own time doing the not fun process of soliciting people at the park. When he did that, I was like, dude, that's the nicest thing ever.
Our Alex Murray has a lot of theater experience, and Amanda has a lot of theater experience. And I kind of like talked to them sort of separately. It was just like, look, I'm new to this directing thing. So if you see I'm doing something wrong, or like tell me, because I don't know what I don't know. And they were both kind of like, listen, all my acting experience has said that you don't do that. So I'm gonna keep quiet. And where I guess it's like a thing in theater to not, like, I don't know, there's some sort of hierarchy about that, but I just like, please tell me, because I want this to be the best thing it could be. And so those kinds of things are interesting in terms of like navigating the theater world, coming from a background that isn't that, and just trying to get stuff done.
But Cristian has a wonderful eye for how things should be done, and in terms of like creative stuff. But I think that's been one of the superpowers of our production, I think, has been, make no mistake, like, yes, Cristian and I co-wrote the script, but there's no like creative hierarchy where you know, it's like, it's a script I co-wrote, so it's a very open process, and I'm so glad it is, because it's just way more fun that way.
My impression is that you guys started this project with a clear vision and an open mind. This has really turned you into multi-hyphenate. Would you say that today it is easier or more difficult to be a multi-hyphenate after this whole experience that you've had?
I would say it's definitely more necessary. That's why I think it's awesome that you're tackling this observation. Is there any field in entertainment where you can be singularly one thing? I don't know. And you know, as someone who is a comic and helped write this script, like, I got to be an actor. Why? Because I've helped write the script and I wanted to give it a college try.
What Brett said is like completely right. It's a necessity, but I also think it would be difficult if you were doing it just because you needed another hyphen, you know? Like, there's a lot of people, like a lot of comics are like, all right, well, I got to do a podcast and I got to do this and I got to do these viral videos, but they don't seem to enjoy it. You have to do things that you gravitate to or enjoy. And ultimately, I think when you do stuff that's like a little bit different, it stands out more. Because if you just do like a podcast, then, well, there's a lot of comedians do a podcast. You do a play, that's kind of interesting. People might want to check it out. If you do a cartoon or whatever, it just, as long as you are invested in it and you think it's a good idea, then I think it's worth doing. I
think that is right. What should guide the choices of what you pursue is what you really actually like to do. Because if you're so focused on the result, it's going to leave you feeling probably hollow, unfulfilled, and sad, especially if, you know, there are some great comics who they're only making content for the internet and they don't really like it. It's just because they want to boost the follower count. You're not even making these things because you think they're funny and they feel like an expression to you. You're doing them solely to get a result. And so that result isn't always going to come.
Maybe you start doing other things out of necessity. How has it impacted both of you as storytellers and maybe even like as human beings? Because I can imagine that it broadens, let's get philosophical for a second, it broadens your perspective, or maybe not, but how has it impacted you?
It makes me feel like, oh, I'm in more control of my projects than previously. I think me a few years ago might have been mental approach was like, I need this from someone. If this so-and-so gave me this check or this, I could walk through this gate, then I can make it. Then I could get it going. But now I go, I can make it happen. You know, with people I care a lot about involved, and just, I think, more self-reliance. And I think because that's, you know, ultimately you're whatever the dream is, it's gotta fall on you. You cannot wait for some blank check or some, you know, the clouds to part and someone's like, all right, the velvet ropes of showbiz have opened, here's everything. And the thing I think so important is, I know I'm living the dream because I'm doing it. And when we were doing the show, even when it was in a 70-seat theater for the New York Theater Festival, I'm still living the dream. Is it on the scope and scale of what I think the project's potential is? No, but I'm living the dream. And so, yeah, I just use that to guide me. Wherever you're at, you are living the dream if you're actually making the art.
Totally agree with that. And that's one of the great contributions to my life that Bret has made, is making me believe that if you really want to do it, you can do it. I mean, it's something that was just an idea, and then it actually happened. We were just like, what about a play? And then the wheels just got in motion. If you just put the wheels in motion, you really can do it if you really want to. It's hard. It's not easy, and it's not for everybody, but like, if you really want to do it and make connections and talk to people and do all that, you can really make it happen. And one of the big things that that I've taken from this experience is that and working with actors, and that's been always a very cool thing, an experience I've got to do. And now I have, when I go on, I plan on making films, and now when I go on to a film set, I know exactly what I want to do and how I want to handle rehearsals. And I do want to rehearse with actors before we get on set. And I have a specific way of rehearsing now that I like and I'm comfortable with. And I know, other than Bret, I know how to talk to actors and compliment them when necessary. But yeah, and so that skill set has been really great. And one of the other things now, when I go to write other stuff, I go, is this as good as the jokes in Race? A live audience laugh at this? Otherwise, it's got to go. Like, I kind of judge it on this show now, so it's a barometer I have.
And what we've the feeling of I can make it happen is informing the next projects Cristian and I like have in the hopper. Is just like, okay, well, I know for a fact, because of this accidental trajectory of Race, I'm always going to perform scripts I write or co-write live, perhaps even as a play before the movie stuff, because I was pretty proud of the movie script, but I know the script we have now is better because audiences have done the work. Audiences have proofread it. And especially for a comedy, it's one thing that it seems funny on a page, but when you have the confidence of audiences backing you up, it does make you feel a lot of confidence in the project. And the jokes are better now because of audiences than they were when Cristian and I were just in a conference room pitching and writing them. Yes. So it's like, I think I've learned a new process where I'm like, do a table read for the script, maybe stage it as a play, get some audience feedback, and that'll inform the next draft. I want to do that for, the rest of, my career.
Let's talk about the future, because I'm not going to ask you guys to predict it, even though I'm sure you'd come up with extremely original answers. But let's go with an educated, experience-based. Yes. Having been around for a while, how do you think the creative landscape is going to evolve for storytellers in general and comedians and comedy writers in particular?
I don't necessarily have a prediction, but I do have something that I would like to see, is that I would like comedians to have more control over the stuff they put out. In other words, if you're putting out sketches or films or plays, learn more about the craft of it, because there are opportunities that you're missing out on comedically when you don't. So I would like to see people really stretch their wings creatively.
Work with people you really like, because you're so much better at being yourself with them than you are otherwise. And you're not uncomfortable. And I feel so comfortable to pitch a joke because I know my collaborators think I'm talented, and maybe I don't have to prove myself. So there's no fear of like, this better be good. I definitely think in this era, I do think gatekeepers, they still have a lot of power, and admittedly, I want to work with them. But also, I think you have more chances at creative independence and autonomy over your projects than you did in years past. And so, if any gatekeepers are listening to this, hey, give us a call.
There's obviously a lot of banter, and that's the case with two comedians, I suppose. But I do think in the end of the day, what's really great is that there's clearly a friendship at the foundation of this, and you guys trust each other and are on the same page creatively, but also in life. Bret, like you said, work with people you like, that you're on the same page with, and then you can create something that is worth watching, listening to, reading, that you're doing, right?
Yeah, no, it's 100% true, because I mean, I was talking to Bret about an experience I had before where, you pitch something and then somebody who maybe doesn't do stand-up goes, I don't really understand why that's funny. And you explain it to Bret, like I'll explain something to Bret and he goes, oh, that's hilarious. I go, right? Like, I'm not crazy. When you share sensibility with somebody, it actually makes the process much faster. Because otherwise you spend a lot of time trying to explain, well, here's why there's 3 layers of funny to this. comedy is one of those things you have to kind of fight for, because there is no real reason for it to exist other than to be funny. So if it's like,
I think you just proved the opposite during the whole conversation. So I will respectfully disagree with that. I think you guys actually explained very well why comedy isn't just that, and that there is a higher goal. And then, of course, I mean, yeah, is there meaning to anything? Maybe not. Is there a meaning to life? Maybe not, but we try and give meaning to it. And comedy is one way to do it. Because imagine a life without laughter and jokes. And like you said, like, it's a catalyst for debate. It's a way to get people to unite people. That's how you use it. Let's talk about your futures, because both of you have been on quite the ride. Bret has retired and unretired from comedy, and released a music album, and Cristian has ventured into directing and may or may not go back to another hidden talent of his, music, which we have not talked about, but he might in the distant or foreseeable future. And perhaps the two of you are already secretly working on an album. There is a tangible upcoming project, another play. So can you guys share a bit more about that, and maybe about anything else that you want to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, we are bringing Race the Movie, the play back for a special 2-show engagement at one of Brooklyn's newest, awesomest performance venues called 275 Park. It's such a great opportunity to get to help open their space to the theater world. And we're pumped for those shows. We were going to do one, but we added another because just tickets sold. But yeah, there is even another project that Cristian and I are working on together. And the through line is who I've worked with on Race is like who I kind of want to work with for the rest of my career. And that project, it's a script I co-wrote with my mom, and it's to tell you about it. It's a sequel to A Christmas Carol, which is the Ebenezer Scrooge story. And it's a slapstick comedy, and it's called A Christmas Carol 2, in which a big box retailer moves into town, forcing small business Scrooge to reconsider the charitable values he learned in A Christmas Carol 1. And we're going to be staging that as a table read. Dean Edwards will be playing Ebenezer Scrooge. I will be his trusty and optimistic sidekick, Bob Cratchit. And the villain will be yet to be named. There's a villain who's like a parody of billionaires in it, and he or she shall be named at a later date.
I'm not sure what the future holds just yet, other than there's a couple interesting opportunities on the horizon, which are cool. Yeah, just working on some scripts, and hopefully I would like to make my film directorial debut very, very soon. So just look out for that. More info on that, because that's going to be coming.
That sounds absolutely amazing. Is there anything I haven't asked you and that I maybe should have asked you that you still want to mention? Or
how much I can bench? I can bench 150. I didn't say a good number. I was like 150. Like, that's not even,
it's actually not that much, Cristian. That's not even an impressive amount, and that's not an impressive amount, and I'm calling your bluff. I don't think you can bench 150.
I don't think so.
Bret, anything you wanted to add about working out or something else?
You can also catch me at a park near my apartment, pick up soccer on Sundays. You can watch me beat a bunch of old men who've had hip surgeries. As I honestly, I have random showbiz dreams, and perhaps the most pathetic one of them is I think I'm doing all of this stuff, and hopefully these projects get a lot of, whatever success, just so I can play in a charity soccer match as a celebrity and have a cool highlight and send it to my high school coach.
Is he on your kill list? Is that why? Or
yes, he is.
So you are going to be playing soccer for charity. Cristian's going to be on Dance Stars. I can totally see this happening.
I actually did have a dream that I could become like known enough to like get all these shows to put me in for one season. In other words, like do Dancing with the Stars and the Masked Singer and The Bachelor, and like just be on them all at once time, almost like if you're watching TV, you're like, is he running across channels? Like, like I just think that would be just insane. I don't know if it's physically possible, but
yeah, I'm sure your wife would love you appearing on The Bachelor.
I was going to say that.
Right? Like.
And your kids, like when they're old enough, like, oh, that is Daddy on The Bachelor. What are you doing there?
Really,
I'm here for all the wrong reasons. I am not interested in marriage.
You will be the first to admit it, though. Like, why are you here? Well, not to find true love. I am just here for my 15 minutes of fame.
Yep, self-promotion purposes. It's a great platform to promote my work.
Well, you guys are obviously better than that. Bret, Cristian, thanks for sharing your experience and stories. And I think you guys are, in all seriousness, an inspiration for other creatives. Your persistence to get your project made and get your message across is very admirable. And I wish you the best of luck on the play and all your next projects. I'm sure we'll be hearing much more from you in the near future. And the distant future.
So that's really nice of you to say, and truly thank you for asking such thoughtful questions.
Thank you for giving me useful answers that I think are not just useful for, you know, me, but also for all creatives and actually also a broader audience, because I really want to encourage anybody who's watching this or reading the article to just follow Cristian and Bret, because it's rare to find talented people who are also kind. Don't you dare crack a joke now, because I'm very serious. And I do think that, you know, somebody can be talented, but if they're not a nice, good human being, it's not really worth following them or watching, reading their work. So it has to be all there, and it is with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And yeah, no, this was so awesome. It meant a lot that you've like went out of your way to like watch some of our stuff. Like that's really nice. Like you didn't have to do that. And
I do have to do that because I'm very thorough, but I also secretly enjoyed it very, very much. I learned from it. So thank you guys.